I had no idea that when I walked in that day, I would be caught in the middle of something terrifying. I saw my chance. I had to create a distraction. I worked the graveyard shift at a 24-hour gas station off the highway. Most nights it's just me, the hum of the refrigerators, and the occasional trucker stopping for a piss and a lukewarm coffee. The place isn't exactly a hot spot, just a flickering neon sign, a couple of busted pumps, and half the time the security cameras are just for show. But that night, something was off from the jump. It was around 2 a.m., dead quiet, except for the buzz of the fluorescent lights. I was leaning against the counter, scrolling through my phone, when a cabbie named Dave walked in. Dave was a regular late 40s, always smelled like cigarettes and cheap cologne, but he was harmless. We'd shoot the shit for a few minutes, while he grabbed his usual black coffee, 2 sugars, and a stale donut. Then the car pulled in. At first I didn't think much of it. Just another customer, right? Wrong. This guy didn't park near the pumps. He didn't even pull up to the door. He stopped right in front of the store, his high beams blasting straight through the glass, lighting up the whole place like a damn spotlight. I squinted, holding up a hand to block the glare, waiting for him to turn them off. He didn't. 5 minutes passed. The car just sat there, engine running. Lights burning into my retinas. Dave shifted beside me, frowning. The hell's this guy's problem? I shrugged, but my stomach was already twisting. Finally, the driver's side door creaked open. The guy who stepped out looked wrong. Not in a supernatural way, but in that way where you just know something's off. His clothes were rumpled, like he'd been sleeping in them for days. His hair was greasy, sticking up in weird angles. And his eyes, his eyes were wide, darting around like he was expecting something to jump out at him. He didn't say a word when he walked in. Just paced the aisles, his fingers twitching at his sides. Every now and then he'd glance at me, his stare so intense it felt like a physical weight. He grabbed a coffee. That was it. Just a coffee. No snacks, no gum, nothing. He slapped a crumpled 5 on the counter, his hand shaking so bad the coins he got back clattered to the floor. I forced a smile. You good, man? No response, just that stare. Dave cleared his throat, leaning in like he was about to say something, but the guy snatched his coffee and bolted back outside. He didn't leave. For the next hour, he just lingered, walking around the parking lot, sipping his coffee, never taking his eyes off me. Every time I looked up, there he was, watching through the glass like I was some kind of exhibit. Dave noticed. "Yo, this dude's creeping me the fuck out," he muttered, sliding his card across the counter. "You got someone picking you up after?" I shook my head. He hesitated, then scribbled his number on a napkin. "Call me when you're done. I'll give you a ride. Don't walk out alone with this freak hanging around." Around 3:30 a.m., a couple of big rigs rolled in, their headlights cutting through the dark. The second they stepped inside, the weirdo bolted to his car, but he still didn't leave. He parked right up against the window, close enough that I could see his face in the glow of the dashboard, just staring. Closing time couldn't come fast enough. The second the clock hit 4 a.m., I locked the doors, heart pounding, and called Dave. He showed up 10 minutes later, idling at the curb. "You good?" I wasn't, but I nodded anyway. The ride was quiet. Too quiet. Dave kept glancing in the rear view, like he was checking for something. When we pulled up to my place, he walked me to the door. Something he'd never done before. "You want to come in?" I asked, half out of politeness, half because I didn't want to be alone. He hesitated, then nodded. I woke up to an empty bed. Dave was gone, but the sheets still smelled like cigarettes. I shrugged it off, figuring he had an early shift. Then a week later, I saw them. I was grabbing groceries when I spotted Dave near the food court and standing next to him. The guy from the gas station. They were laughing, clapping each other on the back like old friends. My blood turned to ice. Dave hadn't just happened to be there that night. He knew that guy. I blocked Dave's number. He called from a different one, and another and another. Then he showed up at the gas station. It was just me, alone, the security camera still broken. He leaned on the counter, smiling like nothing was wrong. Miss me? I gripped the phone under the register, finger hovering over 911. Get out! His smile dropped. Or what? I didn't answer. But the next day I filed a police report, and I never worked the night shift again. Working at a gas station on the night shift, you kind of get used to weird stuff. I mean, the kind of people who come in at 2 or 3 a.m. aren't exactly your average crowd. Junkies, truck drivers, drunk college kids, it's a mixed bag. I don't mind it too much, though. Most of the regulars are harmless, even the ones who are clearly tweaked out of their minds. They're more interested in grabbing snacks or cigarettes than causing trouble. But last night was different. It was one of those shifts where time drags, and you're just counting the hours until morning. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, the empty aisles stacked with chips and soda bottles looking more depressing than usual. Every now and then, a car would pull up, the pump dinging to signal a sale. Nothing out of the ordinary. That's when he walked in. I noticed him right away. You always notice the sketchy ones. This guy was tall, like 6'3", at least, and built, not bulky, but lean, like someone who could snap you in half if he felt like it. His clothes were dirty, like he hadn't changed in days. And his eyes had that wild, glassy look you see in people who are out of their minds on something. I told myself to stay calm. He wasn't the first drugged out dude I dealt with, and he wouldn't be the last. Most of them are just looking for something sugary to feed their high, but this guy, he didn't grab snacks or drinks. He just wandered the aisles, barely looking at the shelves. And every few seconds he'd stop, turn his head, and stare at me. Not just a glance either. Full-on 10-second long stares. I'm not gonna lie, I was creeped out. The store started to clear out. A couple of regulars who'd stopped for cigarettes or coffee left, and suddenly it was just me and him. Great. He kept pacing the aisles, his movements jerky and erratic, like he couldn't decide what he was looking for. I tried to keep busy, pretending to organize the counter or check the lottery tickets, but I could feel his eyes on me, even when I wasn't looking. The tension in the air was thick. I started running scenarios in my head. What if he tried to rob me? What if he had a gun? The security cameras were rolling, but let's be real, those things don't stop anything in the moment. Then he walked up to the counter. He didn't say anything at first, just stood there staring at me. I forced myself to meet his gaze, even though my stomach was doing flips. Then he reached into his pocket. I thought, here we go, this is it. But instead of a gun, he pulled out a Swiss Army knife. A small one, but sharp enough to do damage. He opened and closed the blade over and over like it was some kind of nervous tick. And then he said it. I was supposed to do something very bad to you, he muttered, his voice low and gravelly. But I decided not to, I think. I froze. My brain couldn't even process what he'd just said. It felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. He kept playing with the knife, opening and closing it like it was a toy. I didn't know what to say or do. My hands were shaking so bad I had to grip the counter to steady myself. Robbing me would have been one thing. I've been trained to handle that. Just give them the money and let them go. But this This was personal. This guy wasn't just after cash, he was threatening my life. And the worst part? He didn't look angry or desperate. He looked calm, like he'd already made up his mind about what he was going to do. Then, out of nowhere, he handed me the knife. Just reached across the counter and placed it in my hand. "Hold on to this for me," he said. I stared at the knife like it was a live grenade. What the hell was I supposed to do with it? My first instinct was to keep it, maybe stash it behind the counter where he couldn't reach it. But before I could even think, he started looking around the store, like he was checking for something. After about 15 seconds, he turned back to me. "Can I have it back?" he asked. I didn't want to give it back. Every part of me was screaming not to, but what choice did I have? This guy was massive. He could have overpowered me in seconds if he wanted to, so I handed the knife back. The moment it was back in his hand, he smiled. Not a friendly smile, a cold, dead one that made my skin crawl. "Keep your eyes open," he said, and then he walked out, the bell above the door jingling like nothing had happened. I stood there for what felt like forever, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. I kept replaying his words in my head. "I was supposed to do something very bad to you." What the hell did that even mean? And why did he change his mind? I checked the security footage to make sure I hadn't imagined the whole thing. But there he was, clear as day, pacing the aisles and playing with that damn knife. I finally called the cops. I didn't have much to tell them. Just a vague description of the guy and what he'd said. They sent an officer to take my statement, but I could tell they didn't think much of it. "Probably just some junkie messing with you," the officer said. "Let us know if he comes back." That was it. No follow-up, no patrols. Just me, alone in the store, waiting for my next shift. It's been a few days, and I haven't seen him again, and I don't know what he meant by "keep your eyes open." But I've been taking it literally, watching every customer, every shadow outside the window. I've been working there for about 3 years now, mostly night shifts in inventory and freight. Usually it's pretty chill, just me and my co-workers unloading trucks, stocking shelves, and occasionally dealing with late-night shoppers who forgot to buy milk or whatever. This happened last Tuesday. It was around 9:30 p.m., and I was in the back unloading a massive freight truck filled with seasonal items. You know, the usual stuff. Garden supplies, summer clothes, and all that shit. The store was pretty quiet, which was normal for that time of night. We usually only get a handful of customers after 9. I remember hearing Martha, the older lady who works at the fabric counter, calling for a manager over the intercom. Now, Martha's been working here forever, and she's usually super calm. Like, I've seen her handle some crazy Karen moments without breaking a sweat, but something in her voice that night was different. It wasn't her usual price check or customer assistance tone. At first, I didn't think much of it. Yeah, we get all sorts of weird requests and situations in retail, right? But then, about 2 minutes later, Martha's voice came over the intercom again. This time she wasn't just calling for management, she was practically yelling. My coworker Jake and I exchanged looks. Something was definitely off. Then it happened. Not even a minute later, we heard it. A desperate "help" echoing through the store's speakers. It wasn't just a call for assistance anymore, it was genuine panic. My blood ran cold. In 3 years of working retail, I'd never heard anything like that over the intercom. Several of us dropped what we were doing and started heading toward the front of the store. I mean, when you hear something like that, your instincts just kick in, you know? But Our manager, Dave, stopped us. "I'll handle this," he said, already speed-walking toward the commotion. Looking back, I wish I'd ignored him and gone anyway. What we learned later was absolutely fucking insane. 2 women, sisters as it turned out, had come into the store with their kids. But they weren't shopping like normal people. No, these psychos were treating Walmart like their personal playground from hell. The sisters, both probably in their early 30s. I'm not talking about sneaking a grape or something. These women were ripping open family-sized bags of chips, candy bars, even raw cookie dough, and just going to town on them. But that wasn't even the worst part. Their kids, there were 5 of them between the 2 sisters, were absolutely out of control. We're talking Lord of the Flies level shit here. The oldest one, probably around 12, was leading the younger ones in what I can only describe as a destruction spree. They were running through the aisles, pulling items off shelves, opening packages, and throwing things around like they were in some kind of twisted game show. One of the younger kids, maybe 6 or 7, had gotten into the baby food section and was literally throwing glass jars at the wall, watching them shatter and splatter everywhere. Martha had tried to intervene when she first noticed them destroying the fabric section. The kids had pulled out rolls of fabric and were running through the aisles, letting them unroll behind them like some fucked up version of toilet papering a house. When Martha asked them to stop, the sisters just laughed and told her to mind her own business. That's when Martha called for management the first time. But things escalated quickly. The sisters started getting aggressive, telling Martha they'd take care of her if she didn't shut up. That's when she made the second call. The help call came when the oldest kid did something that still makes me sick to think about. Right there in the middle of the clothing department, this little shit just dropped his pants and started pissing on the carpet. Like, deliberately, while making eye contact with Martha, who was watching in horror from behind the fabric counter. When Dave finally got there and confronted the sisters about their kids' behavior, you know what these crazy bitches did? They fucking laughed. Actually laughed and said, "That's what you're paid for, right? To clean up after customers?" Like, this was all completely normal behavior. Dave tried to remain professional, but these women were having none of it. They started getting in his face, saying they knew their rights as customers, that they could do whatever they wanted because the customer is always right. Meanwhile, their kids were still running wild, pulling more stuff off shelves and destroying everything they could get their hands on. By this point, Dave had already called the police, but these women either didn't care or didn't believe him. They just kept encouraging their kids, telling them to have fun and enjoy themselves. When the cops finally showed up, it was like a scene from Cops. These women completely lost their shit. They started screaming about their rights, about how we were discriminating against them, about how they were going to sue the store. The kids were crying, the sisters were yelling, and the cops were trying to restore order. The sisters refused to leave peacefully. They actually had to be physically removed from the store, kicking and screaming the whole way out. One of them even tried to grab a display rack to anchor herself in place, knocking it over in the process. The damage was unreal. 3 aisles of food products destroyed. The fabric section was a disaster zone. Broken glass everywhere from the baby food jars, and of course, the piss-soaked carpet in the clothing department. The store had to close early that night just to clean up the mess. Later on, they got banned from our store, obviously, and I heard they were charged with vandalism, theft, and disorderly conduct. The store even had to file an insurance claim for all the damage. I remember that day like it was yesterday, chilling down the spine whenever I think about it. It was a sunny Saturday morning. You know, the kind where it's so bright you almost expect everything to go smoothly. The little convenience store just a few blocks from my apartment was my go-to spot for snacks and drinks. I had no idea that when I walked in that day, I would be caught in the middle of something terrifying. As I pushed the door open, the familiar ding of the bell rang above my head, announcing my arrival. The smell of fresh coffee wafted through the air, mixing with the sense of snacks and cold drinks. There were only a couple of customers. The cashier, a guy named Mike, was standing behind the counter scrolling through his phone. It seemed like a regular day, but something was about to change, a change I wouldn't see coming. I grabbed a bag of chips and headed to the drink aisle, listening to the low hum of the fridge. That's when I noticed two guys walking in. They looked kind of rough around the edges, ripped jeans, hoodies pulled low, almost like they were trying to blend in but still stood out. I didn't think much of it at first. Everyone has their bad days, right? But then I saw what they were doing. One of them kept glancing around nervously while the other guy was acting all cool, trying to act natural. It gave me the creeps, but I brushed it off and grabbed a soda. That's when shit hit the fan. Out of nowhere, the two guys rushed towards the counter and my heart dropped. The calm and cozy vibe turned cold as ice. "Open the register," one of them yelled, brandishing something. I squinted and my stomach sank when I realized what it was. A gun. A damn gun! Panic surged through me and I froze, feeling like a deer in the headlights. I thought I was about to die, but then I realized something. It didn't look like a real gun. I don't know what it was, but something about it felt off. The way they waved it around, how cheap it looked. It struck me as sketchy. Were they really that stupid to rob a place with a fake gun? My brain was racing. Could this actually be a joke? Mike, the cashier, was sweating bullets. He looked terrified, his hand shaking as he fumbled with the register. Meanwhile, everyone else in the store was just frozen, staring like we were watching a bad movie unfold. The tension felt thick enough to cut. "Come on, hurry the fucks up," the guy shouted again, and that's when I lost it. Just as Mike reluctantly opened the register, a loud crash came from the back of the store. We all jumped, hearts racing. It was coming from the stock room. The robbers turned, their faces going pale. "What the hell was that?" one of them muttered, and for the first time they looked scared. I wasn't going to wait around to find out. I slowly backed away, keeping my eyes on them. Then it hit me. The noise wasn't random. Something was going on back there. Maybe the store's owner was there. Or maybe it was someone who could help. My brain kicked into overdrive. I saw my chance. I had to create a distraction. I snatched a pack of gum off the shelf and threw it toward the other side of the store. The loud thud startled everyone and chaos erupted. The robbers turned to see what was going on, their focus shifting from us to the sound. "Go!" I yelled to the other customers, and like a flash, we scrambled for the exit. The robbers were flustered, trying to figure out what the hell just happened. Just when I thought we might make it, one of them pointed the fake gun in our direction, yelling for us to stop. But I didn't stop. I just ran. As we burst through the door, I could hear someone in the back yelling, and a store employee appeared. The chaos outside faded in sirens as the cops rolled up, and I turned to see those two idiots trying to make a run for it, slipping on the wet pavement like fools. But as it turns out, they didn't get far. The cops caught them a block away, Confusion still etched on their faces when they realized they just got busted for trying to rob a store with a fake gun. Something nobody believed could happen in real life. You just can't predict when life will throw you a curveball that leaves you shaken to your core.